National Defence College reminds me of where we are and what our aims are. This building that we gave to you was residence of Admiral Leighton during World War II. What happened there in April and May 1942, the decisions that Admiral Leighton took with Admiral Cunningham resulted in the British keeping control of the Indian Ocean. Now in this same building, you too have to focus, or you're focusing again on the Indian Ocean when we see the new geopolitics take place. But after the war, we had made a commitment made by Mr. D.S. Yayaka, which was repeated and by Sir John Kothalavala and as endorsed at the Bandung conference, that we should be free of great power rivalry, and taken one first step further when Mrs. Bandaranaike announced the Indian Ocean as a peace zone. All this was endorsed in the Jakarta Concord when the IORA leaders met in 2017. Now these are the principles which Sri Lanka upholds and which IORA is committed to. I just thought I'll mention a few words of what the situation is today, because the commandant described what is defense today. It is no longer a question of an extension of politics. When international politics break down, then you go to war. That's what happened even in 1939. It's no longer that. It's more like I would say a fruit salad. Everything is included there. But how did we come to this position? After the war, after the World War II, we had two blocks. The two winners of the World War II, US, which provided the economic might, and Soviet Union, whose manpower basically tore the German army apart. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, we saw a unipolar world where US was the single power but working along with others. This was the result of a policy started from the time of President Nixon by Henry Kissinger himself. The two things. One was the politics of engagement, engage with everyone. Second was ensure that you are in the middle between Russia and China, between Soviet Union and China. You have equidistance between them and you don't allow the two of them to get together. Now this is a policy that has been followed by successive American administrations till the recent one. But it also led from the time of President Clinton to integration of the world economy and more so to globalization, not only in economics but in every sphere. We have come to an integrated world, and it is within this the power plays took place, where China became assertive as it was marking out its own sphere in the global geopolitiks. But now that has changed, because the new administration in US under President Biden has moved away from this policy. I think from Kissinger downward, Showcroft to others, all those have been set aside because it's seen that there is competition in the world where China is now a threat to American supremacy. So you came around to a different system where you found alliances. You have the G7, you have the Quad, and you have the NATO. And the sharp distinctions are there, so that China went on to one side, and secondly, countries that were regarded as not supporting this group were then put into the China camp, whether you liked it or not. They were all gone and dumped into the China camp. But China itself had built its own alliances. But what was most striking is that they moved away from the policy of ensuring that China and Russia did not align itself. So this is the new world that we are living in. It's the one that we are all existing here. China has become more assertive, and now this is being tested out. Since we met, and spoke to many of you at the Gaul Dialogue, the geopolitics of the world has changed rapidly. Firstly, the war in Ukraine is going on, and from all reports that are coming, I think Ukraine is not making any progress, stalemate, and Russia is now trying to go forward during the winter. Within the Pacific is where China's strength is demonstrated, where they are competing with US now in building submarines, especially the new submarines which are jet propelled. Within it is the focus and the concentration of China's naval power to ensure that US has no advantage. With their land bases and the islands, they do have a commanding presence in the area. But what has really sparked everything off is what has happened in Israel, which was never in the plans of either side. The Hamas attack, which is a major lapse of policy, that while bringing the Arab and the Israel states together, they ignored the Palestinians and the Palestinian issues. Now this is a major problem. And the attack took place. And I've always said, while Sri Lanka has always supported the rights of Palestine as a free state, We could not condone the attack and we condemned it. But where do you go from there? And that's where the world has split. In my view, what you needed first was a government in Israel which showed national unity and was a government of the center which could take the settlers out. Nevertheless, what happened was different. But the whole Gaza war has now split the world and stretched it out politically. And stations like Al Jazeera and BBC is bringing it into your own living room and bedroom. You sit there eating and you see bombs and dead bodies. You are in your bedroom, you see children's bodies. So you can just imagine what the reaction is in the world. It's basically split the world. And it's been a disadvantage to the US. It's also stretched the US powers. With all these coalitions, you just can't take on. When you focus your military assets and your naval assets in the Mediterranean, what can you do in Ukraine? President Zelensky is shouting that the media has moved away from Ukraine. That's how much the media counts in this war. It helped him at one time, now it's moved on to Gaza. And certainly not so in the Pacific. So that the whole system that was propagated in the last 2 years have also come apart. So it's from here that we have to think of geopolitics and where we are. One good thing is the meeting between President Biden and President Xi, where they have had a positive discussion, though all the issues are not solved, we didn't expect. And now we have to work in that background. We all like that meeting. But as a small country, you got to remember two things. When elephants fight, the grass gets crushed. Similarly, when elephants make love, the grass gets crushed. So we are the grass. Whether they fight or whether they make love, we are the ones who get crushed. So we have to ensure that we are able to survive this scenario. And that's where we have to work out our strategy. World is becoming more complex, and we have to ensure that we are not attached to any side. Sri Lanka won't be. Whatever be the politics of the different administrations, everyone has ensured that we kept out of big power rivalry. We won't do so. We also know that we are in the Indian Ocean. We are in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The same ocean that Leighton and Admiral Cunningham had to deal with. Admiral Somerville had to deal with. It's the same Indian Ocean, and this time we have to ensure that no one dominates it and it's free. So this is where our political and our economic and our foreign policy strength has to come. Those days the British were there and two admirals could decide. Basically, as I said, Admiral Leighton and Admiral Somerville. And finally the whole issue was decided by another Admiral Nimitz, who beat another Admiral Yamamoto in the Battle of the Midway. But from April to that July, the whole question of the control of Pacific and Indian Ocean was in doubt. Now, we can't do that militarily, nor do we hope to. But politically, we have to ensure and work with other like-minded nations that no single group will dominate this area. What do? Firstly, in this world, we are small and neglected. At least, we must be economically, we must be able to stand on our feet. We can't be a bigger nation going and asking for aid all the time. We've gone through a tough time. Let's go through a difficult time to ensure that we stand on our feet. I was there today at the GreenSat meeting on green hydrogen, which we are promoting. And the short-term strategy talks of $10 billion of investments in Sri Lanka by 2030. If you can do that in some other things, you will get through. At least you are strong enough. You can pay your way through, and you can also pay for your defense. So we have to have a new economy which makes us powerful. This is why we want the WTO and the integration of the economy to go ahead, where we do not like decoupling or de-risking. If decoupling is meant to hurt China, it won't hurt China. It's going to hurt the rest of us who depend on this trade between the West and the East. So it's for this reason we have to decide where are our priorities and where do we stand with it. Secondly, foreign policy. We have parted with foreign policy for a long time. We are only focused on Geneva. But I think we need a foreign policy which focuses on all these issues. And that's why we've started again formulating a foreign policy, taking part both in the economic areas and the political areas as a southern country and as a country that is against basically big power rivalry, to take our stand on issues, to have our voice felt and to coordinate with us. Because now there are new groupings and we have to place ourselves in the south, work with them and ensure everyone works intelligently and are not guided by emotion. But we don't reject the US, we don't reject China, we don't reject anyone. All of us have to work together, and that's what we feel that we have to do at this stage. So foreign policy is important. Foreign policy not merely meeting with diplomats or going to UN. Now foreign policy and international policy are everywhere. Environment. There are those of us who are asking for goal of 1.5 degrees centigrade to be met. And there are others who want. So then the whole alignments change. Some of those who are with the South will now go and join one camp. Some of us are in the other camp. But Sri Lanka's position is clear. Then on trade, on the G77. So each of these are issues where Sri Lanka has to make its voice felt. You have to also be in other areas. WHO turned out to be one of the international arena for geopolitics during the time of the pandemic. Who was responsible, what happened? So that every forum can become an arena. So we have to be active. We have to work this out. We have no other option. As the world develops, the big and the powerful have a say, others won't have any say. We can't be big, we can't be powerful, but we should be able to at least stand on our own feet and make our voice heard. And that should be to ensure that Indian Ocean is free of big power rivals. In these terms, you will always be criticized by one country or other. We will be accused of being pro one country or pro another country. Those are the risks you have to take. But you have to get the South together. Now in January, we are having the meetings of the non-aligned and the G77 back to back in Uganda. That will be an important meeting because I feel we have to redefine our purposes, the non-aligned and the G77. You can't separate it, you have to work together now. There can't be separate instances. So there is the South that is coming into being. And let that South function to ensure that whether it be China, whether it be US, whether it be the West, whether it be Russia, China bloc, whatever it is, that we ourselves are a force to ensure that global peace is maintained. So this is a crucial moment for us. And when we study defense, it's a very, very wide definition as the Commandant mentioned. But having discussed this, I feel that it's not only the military officers and the police. You should have more short-term courses for the civilian sectors of the government working together with the foreign ministry. We ourselves, the government has set aside a small group to work on what the future foreign policy should be. We will present it to Parliament so it becomes a national policy followed by successive governments. We will take into account what the others say. Similarly, there is the defense review. Both of those, I hope, can be put into Parliament early next year and to the country to decide so that we know the path that we have to follow. Similarly, I hope, despite all the shouting that the opposition is making in Parliament now, they are rather desperate. So if they can't talk about the economy, they must talk of cricket. But nevertheless, I feel there's a great amount of agreement which people don't want to mention now. But hopefully after the next election, there will be a broader consensus. You need all this to go forward. And these are issues that we have to talk of. We have neglected security, we have neglected defense, we think in terms of the Elam war, we have neglected the economy, we have neglected the environment. So let's all look at it because in this context, you have to remember what we are. We are just a halmaster, but ensure you're not eaten up by anyone. That's all. Thank you.